And the virtual brown bag webcast, I can't talk today, are related to the work of the Curriculum Standards Panel that's brought to you by the National CyberWatch Center. Today's topic is Present, Publish, and Profit, Turning Your Curriculum Innovations into Income-Generating Digital Assets. I'm David Tobey. I'll be the primary presenter for today, but we also are fortunate to have with us Casey O'Brien and Alan Watkins, both of which are very much involved in the leadership of the Curriculum Standards Panel effort. And so I'll hopefully they'll chime in from time to time as topics are appropriate. So I am the Director of Research and Assessments of the National CyberWatch Center and have been the host of the Virtual Brown Bag Lunch series for the prior 8 sessions. The previous webcasts in the series have covered an overview of the competency-based mastery learning curriculum that the Curriculum Standards Panels are developing, designing assessments for competency-based education, the process that we use, an open source model for developing cybersecurity curricula that Alan Watkins presented, and then Casey presented his example curriculum for network scanning, followed by Jim Hogue on presenting a topic on cyber hygiene and security awareness. Terrence Campbell showed us a module for enterprise infrastructure hardening strategy. And in the most recent brown bag lunches over the last couple months, Josh Stroshine has talked about CTFs in the classroom, and Robin Gandy visited us again and gave a demonstration of the secure coding capability assessment. Before we begin, again, I want to remind everyone that we are recording this session, and anything spoken or shared on screen by the host or presenter will be part of the recording. If you object to being recorded, you should either not speak during the session or you may simply disconnect from the session altogether. All participants have been placed on mute, so if you do have a question, please post it in the chat, and we will address all those questions and comments towards the end of the session. The session is designed for about 20 minutes, and therefore we'll go through the topic fairly quickly and leave hopefully a lot of time for discussion at the end. So a little bit of information about me. As I mentioned, I'm the Director of Research and Assessments for National CyberWatch Center, also the Managing Editor for the Cybersecurity Skills Journal, and the lead facilitator of the panel effort. I'm an assistant professor at Indiana University South Bend, and I'm also involved in development of accelerated learning programs and tools. Today's agenda is to provide you an overview of how to propose and present a virtual brown bag lunch in the future. We are going to be releasing shortly a call for presentation proposals, and the purpose of this session is to provide you some information about presenting a virtual brown bag lunch, obviously, as well as answer your questions or discuss your thoughts on how best to develop this program to be helpful to you and other members of the cybersecurity community. Secondly, we will talk about how to convert those presentations and other curriculum innovations you may have developed into peer-reviewed publications, specifically targeting the Cybersecurity Skills Journal. And finally, we'll talk about additional income opportunities that can come from producing workshops or licensing the executables that are related to their curriculum innovations through what we call the Cybersecurity Skills Development Workshops and the National CyberWatch Center Digital Press. So the purpose of the virtual brown bag lunches is it provides an opportunity to share innovations in instructional design or developments that have occurred where libraries are being made available to the community, and or evidence that's been derived from the deployment of innovations in education that can help inform the curriculum standards effort. Again, this program is focused on the curriculum standards panels that the National CyberWatch runs, and so the primary purpose is to feed that process by contributing designs, developed libraries, and evidence of effectiveness in using or deploying those libraries. Therefore, the second purpose is to unveil prototypes or fully developed modular digital assets that could be integrated into comprehensive, adaptive, assessment-driven, competency-based mastery learning programs. That long list of terms there is really what the competency-based mastery learning program that curriculum standards panels are developing is really all about. It's to create adaptive learning programs that are based on a set of modular assets that can be interchanged, exchanged, and sequenced in varying fashions to meet the requirements of a specific learner. So one of the primary purposes of the virtual brown bag lunch is for people to showcase perhaps their early thinking on a new curriculum object, or to prototype, to show us examples of where they've developed a new approach. And finally, of course, to the extent an entire curriculum has been fully developed and will be contributed to the digital library for licensing, to demonstrate that modular asset for the attendees of the virtual brown bag lunch. The style of the lunch, as you'll see here, of course, today, is it's tended to be very short, kind of TED Talk-like, in a sense that it's a 15 or 20-minute presentation with an equal amount of time available for Q&A and feedback. The intent really is to spur a discussion around these new curricular innovations. The format of a virtual brown bag lunch is pretty much always the same, this one being a little different because today we're telling you about how to submit your ideas for a brown bag lunch. But in all cases, it involves three major components. What was the process used to develop that curriculum? What are the instructional components that have been the focus of that curriculum? At the same time, if some of these components have not been included in what will be discussed in the virtual brown bag lunch, some thought given and some discussion around what might be done in the future to develop a full suite by incorporating all of these three elements: the knowledge elements, the skill elements, and the ability elements. And then finally, and most important of all, since all competency-based mastery learning is assessment-driven, to focus on how in the learning process and the learning effectiveness can be assessed. What are the thresholds that determine when someone has achieved conceptual understanding? Meaning, what are those concepts that are the best indicators that someone is approaching mastery in gaining proficiency around that particular area? Secondly, what are the actions that the curriculum is intending people to be able to perform? And once again, assessing how we can identify that they're skilled in doing so. And then finally, what are the judgments that individuals who have mastered the knowledge and skill should be able to begin to perform, and decisions and choices they should be able to make that showcase their ability to address unfamiliar or at least previously not practiced challenges. So those are the primary areas of the virtual brown bag lunch. Talk about how you've developed it, what your learning goals, the concepts that were included, and the pathways that someone might go through. Then breaking down those into very discrete elements of the concepts, the declarative knowledge they would need, how those concepts are sequenced together in a set of procedures, how those procedures might change as a result of varying conditions, and what situations those conditions might appear in. And then finally, adding practice components where someone can apply the knowledge that they've gained in a more scripted way. Practice labs are kind of tutorials. They're a step-by-step, so I can make sure that I not only understand the sequence in the knowledge area, but that when I go through applying that sequence, that I do so in the correct steps, in the correct order. And then once I've practiced sufficiently to habituate that pattern of performance and to create skill, I then want to be challenged in applying that skill under varying situations and see if I react to those situations with the proper conditional knowledge, procedural knowledge, declarative knowledge in solving a specific challenge. The call for presentations will focus on the 7 areas of the NICE framework, the National Cybersecurity Workforce Framework, that identify the specialty areas within cybersecurity. So these 7 areas of operate and maintain, investigate, collect and operate, analyze, oversight and development, securely provision, and protect and defend. We would like to be able to develop libraries for each of these, curriculum libraries for each of these. Our focus to date has really been on the foundation series that you see at the bottom and its feed into what we'd like to call the bridge course of the information security fundamentals. We call it the bridge course because that course enables people to take the foundations that they've learned and begin to understand a broad array of cybersecurity principles and be able to learn the appropriate techniques and tactics and procedures necessary to then begin to specialize in a particular area of cybersecurity. And that's represented by these specialty areas along the top. So we're especially interested in proposals that would address areas such as digital forensics or ethical hacking or operating system fundamentals or other areas that you see arrayed here and others that you may think should be arrayed there in order to prepare people to enter into some of these specialty areas in their future careers. Once you've developed a brown bag lunch, then the next step is to extend that sort of prototype or early thinking into a full-length journal article. And we released in August of this year a new journal called the Cybersecurity Skills Journal, Practice and Research. First special issue was out on the beginning of August, associated with the 3CS conference. If you attended that conference, you will have gotten a copy of the entire journal. If not, the entire journal is available because this is an open access journal, which I'll talk about more in a minute. That entire journal is available on the National CyberWatch Center website. The journal itself is very unique in that not only it is the only journal that is specifically focused on the development of cybersecurity skills and the measurement of the effectiveness of those skills, but it is a hybrid access journal. And what we mean by that is all of the articles available in the Cybersecurity Skills Journal are available for free download under an open access policy. However, in order to be able to support the open access policy and make that information freely available, the revenues are needed in order to pay for the publishing costs and those kinds of things, will be gathered through a variety of mechanisms. One, sponsorships and other corporate or government support of the program, but especially a second aspect of the journal is to enable the associated executable assets. For instance, the actual instructional module itself being able to be loaded as a package into a learning management system, or other areas that might be related, such as tools or other guidance techniques, other forms of, say, guidebooks or guideline instructions that could be downloaded on a pay-per-use basis. So the private access will be subscription-based or individual pay-per-use based and provide royalty opportunities back to the authors. And secondly, to facilitate the development of this journal, we have identified fellowships, and fellowships can be valuable for those seeking tenure to include in their CVs. And a fellowship is earned in the Cybersecurity Skills Journal by performing reviews, peer reviews, because this is a peer-reviewed journal, or participating in other events by which they would get honoraria. One of those events are regional or national workshops that will be conducted around the content of initially that virtual brown bag lunch, and then of course the particulars that were published in the journal article. We call those cybersecurity skills development workshops, and again I'll revisit this at the end when we talk about a little bit further about how you can submit information and content to the libraries and then convert that into potential income opportunities for yourself. So the editorial policy of the Cybersecurity Skills Journal is we really want to be thought leaders in the area of evidence-based cybersecurity. What that means is we would like each and every article, to the extent possible, to include evidence that indicates that the instruction or practice that is being promoted has been effective, and make that evidence available for others to assess in terms of their own needs, but also to use rigorous methods to ensure that that evidence is reliable. To support this effort, we also want to encourage folks to join us who are thought leaders in the space, to be associate editors of specific topic areas, to again, provide their reviews, constructive reviews of submissions. And we will also be providing impact awards for articles that receive the most citations, as well as those whose executables are downloaded most frequently. Finally, the Best Paper Awards will be presented each year at our annual conference, the Community College Cybersecurity Summit, which occurs each summer. The calendar for submissions is posted here. All of these slides, of course, will be made available on the National CyberWatch Center website. So if you don't catch them now, you can, or if you're watching the recording, you'll be able to jot down this information. So the next issue will be published on March 31st. The submission deadline for that issue is December 15th. We will have a very quick turnaround of the constructive reviews to you by January 15th. So within a month, you will get your response in terms of your submission. And then we ask that within 6 weeks that you complete all your revisions that have been requested and have them reviewed. So it'll be, of course, an interactive process, as it usually is. But we want to complete all the revised and resubmissions by February 28th. So that we have the final month to produce the issue. Similar process, of course, will be done for every issue. And so for the June 30 issue, the submission deadline is February 15th, decision letters March 15th, and the revised and resubmits are due by April 30th. The call for papers, the full call for papers is available on the National CyberWatch Center website for the Cybersecurity Skills Journal. And this is just a quick summary of the types of information we think would be valuable to submit. Not saying that we've got everything captured here, so if you have other ideas, please feel free to submit those and submit your manuscripts to us. The author guidelines are available at the link that shortened link that's listed there. Again, they will also be posted at a later date for people to access. But if you'd like to get quick access there, you can access that link, and it will take you to more detail about how you would submit, the format of submission, and some further detail in terms of some questions we'd like you to consider as you're formulating your submission. Finally, you can get involved not only by submitting submitting manuscripts to the journal, but also to become a peer reviewer or serve on the editorial team. There's a link here, again, back to our page at the National CyberWatch Center website, where you can register your interest in becoming a peer reviewer or perhaps serving on the editorial team. As I mentioned, once you've fully developed a curriculum innovation, you can also then teach others how to use your innovative curriculum or teach others in using your innovative curriculum in cybersecurity skills development workshops. And we're in the process right now of actually developing a proposal for the Department of Labor, which we call Skill Up to Scale Up, that would utilize these materials as well as these workshops in raising the capability and maturity of our nation's IT workforce. So these skill development workshops give you a way to generate honoraria, if you will, instructor fees for actually performing the curriculum innovation that you're publishing through the journal and presenting in a virtual brown bag lunch. Fundamentally, the idea of Skill Up to Scale Up is that we need to be raising capability through building proficiency and then competency and then capability all the way to mastery in a series of stacked credentials in the incumbent workforce first. Those people who today, there's roughly around 6 million IT workers today, the vast majority of which do not have cybersecurity capabilities. And by raising their capabilities, it enables them to move into more specialized roles in the organization and to scale up the incoming workforce by mentoring and tutoring them as they come on board. So the process used is built around all the assets we've talked about briefly today. Instructional assets, which would include the assessments that are associated with them, the labs that enable the practice of the information contained in the instruction, and run through a personalized library of assets that enables individual learners to proceed at their own pace. In effect, it requires us to think a little differently about curriculum. This isn't stand up in the front of the room, the sage on the stage, but rather the guide at the side. And for more information about that approach, there is a prior virtual brown bag lunch session, the first one, that was done in November of last year. The recording of that is available on the National CyberWatch website at that location. For more information on the cybersecurity programs and the curriculum standards panel, you can also get information on our website or by emailing us at info@nationalcyberwatch.org. So that concludes the formal part of the webcast presentation. We don't have too many people on the line here, so feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question. I know, Alan, you posted a question. Will you share how, where does someone submit materials to be added into the CSP libraries? For now, that is best done by literally just emailing me. My email information is there in the presentation, and I will also add it in the chat. And then we will get back to you with further instructions. So you can email me here at phtoby@indiana.edu. Other questions, comments? Casey, anything you would like to add to what I've said, or Alan?
No. Hi, Trevor. I presume that's Trevor Chandler, right? Casey O'Brien here. Give him a second to unmute.
Yep, that is Trevor Chandler. Casey, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, sir?
Doing terrific. Thank you for asking.
Thanks for joining. Do you have any specific questions or comments?
Well, no questions. Well, I do have questions, but have you ever been in a position to where you had a question, but you didn't know quite exactly what to ask?
Confusion, I think that's called. So I've definitely confused you.
Well, no, I won't. I won't put that on you. I won't say I'm confused. Maybe a bit overwhelmed, but not confused. But at least I can see how my entry point might be that of a reviewer for right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's great, and we certainly need that. And you know, oftentimes being a reviewer is a great way to get ideas for a journal manuscript that you want to submit, because as you review others and you see sort of gaps in their ideas, it generates insights into new new research that needs to be done.
Yeah. Let me see if I can pose one question that might make some sense. Now, on the virtual brown bag lunch, the presentations, and I apologize if I missed this, but the presentations will be of what length, what amount of time?
Typical presentation is 15 or 20 minutes. They're very brief. They're intended to be, just kind of quick snapshots of what someone has been working on, just to inform the community about it, and allow a considerable amount of time for dialogue as we're having right now. Okay. Typically we always have these on Wednesdays and Fridays. It's actually always the second Wednesday and Friday of the month. The reason we do 2 days is obviously not everybody can pick a specific time to come, but we do find, as we did today, that we have more attendees usually on Wednesdays than Fridays, probably for obvious reasons. So Friday, everybody can't wait to just get out the door. But occasionally we get a bunch of folks on a Friday as well. So we do 2 days a week, 2 days on the second Wednesday and Friday of the month. And it's really just a chance to expose the community to what you've been thinking about, or what you created as a prototype, or obviously if a full module is available, making that available to folks perhaps to pilot in their organizations. We do host a number of pilot programs. We have actually one going on right now for the Information Security Fundamentals Readiness Assessment. That's one of the links that's also available through the website. And we're about to do some others upcoming for other assessments and other libraries. So that's a good use of the virtual brown bag lunch, is just introducing people to what you're working on. Depending on what level of development it is, it could be everything from just a basic idea all the way through to here's a full turnkey library that you could begin to test out in your organization. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Okay, well, now let me try one more. So will the brown bag lunches, in essence, they're intended to be technical presentations of a technical item? For example, security enhanced Linux, if you're by chance familiar with SE Linux.
Casey is way more than me.
Yeah.
Alan.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, again, you know, we're looking for topics that lend themselves to us being able to then incorporate in some curricula somewhere. So
Yes.
yeah, that certainly would fit the bill. But
Okay.
also, David mentioned something that may have gotten lost, but we also want to use the virtual brown bag lunches as a way for people to kind of test out new ideas. Or so if you're thinking about, hey, I'm thinking about teaching this in this way to these people, but I'd like to get some feedback, or I'm thinking about doing this, and I want to run this competition, but there's 4,000 competition, right? So just as a forum also to really kind of to get ideas validated, or to get feedback from the community too.
Okay. All right. I'm glad you mentioned that. I won't say that got lost. It just probably just went over my head. Like I said, I was taking it in quite fast. Okay, so yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Casey. Okay,
Sure.
so that gives me yet another idea.
Yeah, the other important point I think, Trevor, is these are intended to be kind of quick hitters, right? So that's why we record them. And so, we do expect that a lot of people that benefit from the session will actually benefit from listening to the recording. Now, we record both sessions, but obviously we only post one. So we pick the best of the two from the Wednesday and Friday session. That ends up getting posted up on the website. And that way individuals either can kind of slow it down or play it over if they need to kind of refresh of what was said, or obviously get access to it if they weren't able to attend.
Okay, all right. And so what all would I need to provide in advance to present on a virtual brown bag lunch?
Fantastic question. So that is this format. So basically what we would want you to do is, first of all, we really need four things. One, what is the idea? So a very simple one paragraph explanation of what it is you'd like to present. Secondly, a kind of a proposed slide deck. Doesn't have to be everything that you present, but basically just a kind of a proposed list of topics you'd present that would relate to these three areas. So what either was or would be involved in the development process, what are or might be instructional components. So again, I really want to emphasize a lot of our presentations have been one piece of that instructional list. Somebody just doing, say, a declarative instruction. These are the concepts you need to know. Or someone just showing a lab, right? But we do ask that if that's what you're doing, to also think about those other topics. And so those would be mainly, conversational rather than rather than some kind of demonstration. So elements on instructional components. And then finally, similarly, how you would assess someone's accomplishments, as a learner. And so those are the three pieces. So basically a proposal would be what it's about, what are these three sections, what you cover in these three sections, and then the last thing is, of course, we would need a bio on you and a photo so that we can put it on the
Okay, so and David, you showed this slide earlier.
Yes.
And what you just mentioned, you probably mentioned that earlier, and that went over my head also. But that's a reflection of me, not you. But a moment ago, you said that the presentation could be just a lab. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct. In fact, I expect we will have many of those, because what's really interesting in this community, if you think about it and reflect on it, is that there have been a lot of people talking about labs, a lot of people building labs. We have a whole bunch of labs, hundreds of them, right? But a lot of times those labs have been produced a little bit in isolation. Like it's the lab without necessarily all of the instruction necessary to really execute that lab. Making sure that they fully understood all the concepts that are needed to perform in the lab, or perhaps did not include a detailed assessment process, right? Or how it connects perhaps to, if the lab is again, the way we've defined labs, there's two types. If it's a practice lab where it's much more of a tutorial step by step, how might that be changed if I were going to make it more open-ended and involve some form of challenge that those steps would have to be required. Or even the steps themselves. Another thing that I've noticed, and again, I'm not really a cybersecurity expert, so you guys are, but as someone who researches, education and training and learning and expertise, one of the things that usually is lacking is attention given to the conditionals, meaning in what way might these steps alter under certain situations,
Sure.
right, or certain conditions. So that would be another aspect of thinking through how to do that. But again, I do expect we'll see a lot of people proposing labs, and hopefully with this other thought process, have those labs be more robust.
Yeah, it's your earlier comments made me feel as though you had maybe a hidden camera in my classroom. Because I do a lot of labs on the fly. It's just based on some concept that I'm covering, and there may not be a lab that's already developed, but I will put something together again just to demonstrate the concept, the theoretical concept that I might be covering. So, okay, so that's beautiful. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So Trevor, I do that also. David, so one other aspect of looking at how to do a presentation that I was thinking of is starting from the assessment side, maybe a pre-assessment, and then feeding back that loop to, if they get incorrect answers, how do you correct the misunderstanding or the misconception, and what training or learning modules need to go in that aspect of it?
Yeah, Alan, that really is really insightful. Very important concept that is at the fundamental sort of essence, if you will, of competency-based mastery learning, because really what differs between CBML, of course, and outcome-based education is CBML is focused on what don't you understand, whereas outcome-based education is trying to figure out what you did understand. And by focusing on what you don't understand, you're right, we're going to need a very robust library of alternative learning modules that if I don't understand X, well, here's a different module to help me understand X. And all these differentiated learning paths that enable us to personalize the learning to a learner require varying, different versions, if you will, of a particular instructional library. And that all begins with assessment, because that's how you find it out. So if you think about it, in our 9 that we've had so far, of the 9 brown bag lunches, arguably you could say my first one on the skills gap that's focused on an overview of the CBML talked a little bit about assessment, but Robin has given 2 very excellent virtual brown bag lunches on designing those assessments and giving an example of one of those that he designed, the secure coding capability assessment. And I agree with you. I think more of those will help the whole community start to think in this assessment-driven process.
Right. So I do have 2 other questions. One, I had a question from a faculty colleague at actually a different, not at my university, but somewhere else, wanting to know how do they get a hold of the finished materials, if they, whether they're a member of NCC or not, or if they go through the what was developed for the NSA for their CAE program.
Yeah, so there's a couple different answers to both of those, I guess. So Casey, have you gotten an update from NSA in terms of how they're planning on disseminating those materials? Because they in effect own the materials that were developed under that program.
No, so in our, was it April workshop in California, they were experimenting with a clearinghouse being developed out of Towson University in Maryland, but that's the last I've heard.
So I should direct the people probably just to contact their CAE representative.
Yeah, I would.
I would at this stage, and we are, Alan, thinking about ways in which we can begin to aggregate these into a library under the CyberWatch umbrella. So that'll be a while before that happens.
So if they need to become a member of National CyberWatch, I can point them to the general information for that.
Absolutely. As you know, it's free for an academic institution, so it's almost
right.
There's really not much barrier other than they have to fill out a form.
Yeah, that's right. Got to fill out the form. So my other question was, once someone submits their online application to become a fellow or editor, either an editor or a section reviewer? How long does that take to get an answer back?
Generally about 30 to 45 days. And the reason is we, as an editorial team, meet once a month to review those that have been received. And then, letters have to be formulated and sent out to everybody in terms of, there's three possibilities. This actually, it's not that different than submitting a manuscript, right? Yeah. One is an immediate accept. One is, kind of a revise and resubmit, which is basically asking for some more information. Typically, we have a form that you fill out on the CyberWatch website. When you click on that link, it takes you to the form and asks you to, fill out some information. But it's pretty basic information. And if there's further questions, if the board's just not certain about that individual, we'll ask for additional information to be submitted, or perhaps we ask them to, even one of those might be completing our maturity assessment, just to make sure we understand where that person fits. The third possibility, of course, is that they wouldn't be accepted. So pretty much like a manuscript, there's those three approaches. There are two in the last category. But anyway, that happens once a month, typically towards the end of the month. So we just finished the September one just like a couple weeks ago, whenever it was, 10 days ago. It was like the last day of September or abouts. And I'm in the process of putting together letters. We've got this grant we're working on right now, so that's actually not happening just yet. But
okay, that's great. That's all the questions I had.
Great, thank you for all those questions. That's awesome. All right, terrific. Well, no one else has any other questions, then we will end the session for today. This is very typical, again, of the Brown Bag Lunch. We plan them for no more than 45 minutes so people can eat their lunch while they're listening and still have some time to digest both what we've said and what they've eaten before they have to get back to work. So we really appreciate you all joining us today. And of course, for those who are listening on the recorded session, we hope you will join us again in the future. Have a wonderful afternoon.
All right. Thanks for this. This has been great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.